I want to dig a little deeper because, we can read all these reports. I've been doing research. I always prepare for my, interviews before I get on the mic with somebody about the specific mental health challenges that face the Black community disproportionately. From your perspective, what are those? Because you're on the ground doing this work, you're experiencing it as well personally.
Hmm.
Tell us about that because again, we can read it in all these studies and reports, but let's talk about what reality is. Like, what are you seeing?
I thought about something like today, and I don't know if I should go deep into it, like, but I'll paraphrase it. I think it'd be enough information for you and the audience to articulate or to sort of
Mhm.
mind through like what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
so something that there's no report for is something,
Mhm.
there are these invisible indicators or these invisible things that are nestled within the Black community that we're all dealing with, and no one sees them but us. And so therefore it's hard to put a percentage to, right?
Sure.
Or it's hard to say you can't diagnose what you don't see, right? So Black people for a long time have been very forgiving, and because we grew up the way we grew up from all the pain, right? So not only are we dealing with childhood trauma by the hands of the people that we grow in spaces with,
Mhm.
but the systematic oppression and trauma, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're told get over it, time has passed, yeah, but it's still unprocessed stuff.
Mhm.
There's never been a resolution or a solution, right? And
Mhm.
so this invisible thing that shows up, like whenever I see a white person, right, which is why it's hard, like for me to have white employees, white partners, right? Because while I may not be afraid of you because of what has happened, there's these invisible indicators or triggers that tell me don't let them in. And so
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm hurting my organization or am I protecting my organization. But the fact that I have to think about that at all, that is the privilege of what we talk about with certain races. You don't have to deal with that type of stress.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So that alone is something that there's no number for we have we had to become very resourceful people because in which the conditions that we grew up in, right,
Mhm.
raised from the foundation of America to the present day, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm thinking about intergenerational
For sure.
trauma,
Yes.
community trauma, family trauma, all this stuff, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So when I think about that, oh, what an exhausting life.
Yes.
And the only thing that comes close to comparing so people can understand what I'm saying is poverty. It's the only thing that can come close to from a comparison standpoint because they're almost the same because technically there's a poverty or a lack of community. That's a form of poverty, right?
Mhm.
If you don't have proper understanding, that's a form of poverty, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just food insecurity, not
Sure.
financial insecure,
Yes.
emotionally insecure. And so I like to talk about those things and like get people to think about the invisible stuff that you can't
Yes.
see and is exhausting and we cannot breathe because you don't get it because you said, oh, it's over. It's a new day. You're free. No, because systematically, like when I walk down the street, if I have a coffee, hip hop, or mental health logo on, and you know what that is, you treat me with respect. But if I
Right.
don't have that on, and you just see a black man walking, I see how you react to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is one of the things. And so I said this when I was thinking about Kanye West, and I don't never agree with what anybody says wholeheartedly because we don't agree, right? There's perspective, how you grew up. I don't know your situation, so I don't agree with everything and what everybody says. But the one thing I thought about was, man, black people are so forgiving. We had to be a forgiving people to even live in this country and go to work every day very confident. But man, no one really forgives us.
Mhm.
Do you know how exhausting that is?
I can only imagine again.
So, yeah, I mean, like, so I can easily tell you what everybody reads. Yeah, if you grew up in
Yeah.
poverty, like, there's we already know like what we're lacking in our communities. But
Sure.
let's talk about the thing that you don't know. that is tough. And so running a organization, I am often seen and viewed as the black man running an organization.
Mhm.
I recognize I'm black. I love the fact that I'm black. You
Mhm.
feel me? I stand by my community, but what I want us to see, color, understand, and I don't want us to be passive about it. But someday I just want to be the guy who's doing good by people. And I don't
Mhm.
want you to make a decision because
Right.
of color.
Right.
And because diversity and inclusion programs and resources and companies wasn't created for black people, it was created for other races to acknowledge that we need the support. Right?
Mhm.
So yeah, and then all the other facts that come with that. So I wanted to talk about that because there's this high level invisible thing that is
Yes.
impacting our lives.
Right.
And because we don't talk about them, because everybody says that happened 50 years ago. You
Right.
should be look how far you all have come. But it's the invisible things
Right. And what you're
that are
getting at is root cause. It's about
facts.
what's really underneath when you peel back the layer after the layer after the layer, right? That's what you're talking about. It's what we talk about in Ayurveda as, what is underneath the symptom, right? If you're
Mhm.
talking about it from a health perspective, which is a medical perspective, which I'm coming from, right? You can look at a symptom on the surface. Like, what's the cause of the symptom? And you can say, let's throw this at it, let's throw that at it. Let's cure the symptom, right? Let's get rid of the symptom. The problem is that you can get rid of it for a little while by medication, surgery, whatever. That's the Western model that I came from, that I was trained in as a physician, right? The reason I went back to Ayurveda, the healing system of my ancestors, is because we do so much more. It's about prevention. It's about looking at the root cause. Where is it coming from? Right? Yes,
Absolutely.
let's help the person with the acute discomfort that they're in. That is important. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But we can't stop at that. And that's where Western medicine, from my perspective, goes wrong. That's where what's lacking in
Absolutely.
Western medicine. We got to look at what's underneath it. And that's what I feel like you're sort of alluding to. That's what's coming up for me when you say that. Like, let's look at the invisible stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, like, absolutely. So we're pacing 5 years. So as of July,
Hmm.
7th, 2024, will be 5 years. And
Amazing.
thank you, which is,
Congratulations. That's huge.
thank you. Um, I can feel every bit of it too.
I'm sure you
So
can.
I'm both proud and like, I earned these gray hairs. Right. Well, when I started the therapy program in 2021, January up until present day, like when we closed the fourth quarter of like last year, I was sitting back with this $67,000 debt, and I'm looking at how we were attempting every year to spend $250,000 on free therapy. And then at the end of that, I said, this isn't sustainable for us to be assuming the debt. And I learned in my own therapy journey because as much as I was building this organization, I was also in real time still going to therapy. It wasn't like I went to therapy and said, okay, 3 years later, after
Yeah.
having all this work, I'm
Right.
gonna go do this thing. I was doing it in real time. So I was very much, in my first stages, right? Trying to
Hmm.
build something for other people in the midst of COVID. So it was very problematic
Yes.
to do what I was doing. It was
Yes.
a risk. It was a huge
Yeah.
risk, right?
Hmm.
And so at the end of last year, I said, you know what? Free isn't sexy. We're giving away all these. We have this beautiful coffee shop. We have prime real estate. The model makes sense, but when you look at from an infrastructure sustainability, can we be around another 5 or 10 years? Free isn't sexy. Free doesn't actually attract donors who understand in order for you to sustain, if you're just giving the house away, I understand the intention, but if you're just giving the house
Right.
away, I don't know if I should seed into that because you're always going to need money. We need to empower you financially so you can find a way to increase, your internal system so you can make more money based upon what we're sending to you, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we need to see like a better model or
Right.
right. And so I was like, okay, free isn't sexy, Avanti, because most people don't respect free.
Yeah.
Right. So I was watching how we was going from 43% to 57% from a success rate. And I was like, what is the problem? Oh, okay, here's the problem. money isn't the only issue. That isn't the only barrier in the Black community, or anybody who's coming. Some people need a massage. Some people need a job. Some people need food. Talk therapy isn't the only form of therapy.
Right.
So when we look at our campaign, so we're coffee, hip hop, and mental health, and our
Yep.
goal is to normalize therapy, right?
Right.
How are we going to do that? Well, food is therapy.
Yes.
Community is therapy.
Yes.
Proper clothing, water, the basic needs of life, that's therapy. So we
Right.
started to look and say, okay, let's pull it back. Let's stop all these programs. Let's stop paying for people to go to therapy. We did it for 3 years. We have nothing to prove. We said everything that we did everything we said that we were going to do. So we don't have nothing to prove. So
Right.
let's stop.
Hmm.
Let's look at our expenses and let's say, well, the coffee shop can't go away. So if we continue to put ourselves in debt, then we're gonna lose this whole thing. So let's
Right.
be smart here. Let's be smart. Let's step back, talk to my mentors, talk to my team. Here's the answer. We're going to create normalizedtherapy.com. We're going to release it on May 1st. Let's go back to the original plan, turn the cafe into Normalized Therapy Cafe. Let's make a more zenful wellness space. Let's turn it into an upscale boutique. Let's go back to what the plan was, community and commerce. Let's do
Hmm.
this thing different.
Hmm.
Let's make money because every nonprofit has to have
For sure.
profit.
Right.
But we understand that the barriers are grief, this unprocessed grief, disappointment. I feel vulnerable today, but I don't feel vulnerable tomorrow because I'm protective,
Yep.
survivor mode. Even me going to get surgery for my ruptured Achilles taught me something very valuable. The doctor or the surgeon who would do the surgery was in my therapy program like before he even started doing surgery, because not because he didn't have the money. That's the stigma. I don't really know how to do this. So I said, you know what? It's not just money. It's not just Black people. It's any human being who has lived this life long enough is going to have some heartbreak and disappointment. So
Yep.
how do we help them navigate this life? Let's go back. It's
Right.
basic needs, Avanti, versus advanced needs.
Yeah.
And you're not, and technically therapy is a basic need, but I'm looking at more high level. Are you going to have the bandwidth to sit in a one-on-one every week if you don't have food?
Yeah.
So let's
Exactly.
go back to man's law hierarchy needs,
Yeah.
and let's
Yeah.
really look at this thing, right?
Right.
I mean, because what are the barriers? Why are you stressed out? Oh,
Right.
you don't need talk therapy to figure it out. You probably need a mentor, right? Or
Right.
maybe you're working 60 hours a week.
Right.
So, it's looking at humanity one on one. What do we need on a daily basis to figure this
Right.
thing out? And so I know that was a mouthful, but I'm trying to get you to understand that as a nonprofit doing this type of work, you have to like always look at your plan and your mission and say, we gotta be a little flexible in this. And we gotta really, really see what's happening, because
Right.
if we're gonna be around for the next 5 years, then we have to like stop being so mission minded that we're not leaning into more thoughtful intention and wisdom.
Yeah, what you're talking about is actually really looking at what is it that people really need. Again, looking underneath, what's really the root cause, right?
Hmm.
So to say that we need to give therapy, which is a beautiful thing, and I absolutely agree
Mm.
with you that most human beings, when they've lived long enough, or even if they haven't, everyone experiences trauma in some way, right?
In some way.
But looking
Absolutely.
at what's going on underneath. And so, one of my questions was to you, what do you think, some of the most significant barriers are to mental health in any community, but especially the Black community? You just actually answer the question, which is all of these things.
Yep. And shame.
Mm,
Shame and
big one.
embarrassment are, yeah, man,
Big.
shame and embarrassment is something that I see in every community,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And like the beautiful thing is, Avanti, is when you have a beautiful space that we have, where we have our collective community come in a room, there's a single mom, there's the family man and woman, there's the
Mhm.
corporate person, the doctor, the athlete, the
Right.
teenager, and they're all in one room. And what they have in common is, I like that song. I know what it's like to be in love. I know what it's like to be crushed, broken, and
Yep.
embarrassed.
Yep.
Oh, wow. We feel the same stuff. Yeah, because when
Yeah.
you live this life long enough,
Yeah.
You're gonna be embarrassed by something.
Yeah.
You're gonna be crushed by something,
Right.
and then those are the little bitty barriers that we don't really know that will become the bigger thing because we're taught to just get
Yeah.
over
It's
it.
being human,
Yeah,
right? Those are all the human emotions that we all feel.